up with them tutus and waste mines and circle these birds like a fruit loop.
All right, hey everybody! I want to welcome you guys to Beyond Drums. It's just a little group of us drummers talking, real talk about what's going on in the drum community, and we'd love to hear all you guys' thoughts and what you think of the shows. Today's topic is going to be drum covers. So we're going to start off with the drum cover topic, and we're going to go over to Julian and see what he has to say about that first.
Ooh, well, I guess like my thing, I'm kind of new to the cover thing. I never really had the means to do it because you kind of got to have a decent setup to like film it and like have good recording, because if you do it with bad recordings, like good luck, nobody's really going to pay attention to it. I like drum covers. I'm more of a creator though, so I kind of, that's why I said I'm new to the whole thing, is I've always been like writing music and creating music that way. So I think this whole new world of using a DAW and having a mixer that can run all that stuff has been like very interesting to me, and it's something that I'm starting to do because I do like playing other people's songs. That's just my thoughts on it.
Now, when you do covers, do you tend to like to try to stay as close to the cover, the original, as possible, or when you make a cover, do you kind of vary and put your own twist on it when you play it?
I would say that like if it's a straight like boom bap, like straight like hip hop old school beat, I try to keep it very like close to it. But with newer songs, like I sent you guys something just recently, like with newer stuff like that, I'm kind of just I try to put a little bit something else to it as opposed to just keeping it like exactly how the song is, as well as like when you hear those like bass like swells that aren't really kicks but they're swells in the songs and stuff like that. I like to keep like those little bits in, and so I'll cut my kick work out, like I'll dial it back a bit so it kind of lets the song do its thing. If that kind of makes sense, that's kind of how I like to do it.
Right. Steve, I know now this from personal experience with you um, over months. Your covers tend to be spot on. I mean, like almost note for note. Is that just a personal preference for you?
Uh, I look at covers. If you're going to do a cover, in my opinion, it all depends on I guess, what you want out of the cover. The covers I tend to do are obviously music I like, and then it tends to be somewhat challenging on some level. So, for example, I have done a lot of covers, and I've been doing them a lot in the last few months. But when I do a cover, the first thing I do is make sure I can find the music for it. So I've done a bunch of Rush, I've done Zeppelin, and I like to make sure I try to do it note for note, only because one, it teaches me how far off I really was when I thought knew it. You know, the way I thought I was playing it, and then to see what they actually played, it was kind of eye opening to go, wow, I was way off. And I like to push myself because it forces me to read as I'm learning something, so it kind of forces me out of a comfort zone into something that maybe I couldn't do before. So, there's a lot of value in covers.
Me personally, I tend to try to get them as close as I can, um, but I also like to have my own feel or interpretation of the cover. Um, just so I know that it's my cover. It's not. I am covering your song, but to my interpretation of it. Which is why a lot of times, sometimes the drumless tracks are a little bit better because you can interpret it your own way versus trying to load it into your DAW and cut out their drums and add your drums if you're not spot on. The plus to trying to do, like you were just saying, some of the covers that are challenging, if you have the music, is that's a way to incorporate it into your practice also, because then you're not only practicing a cover that you want to do, but you're also practicing maybe some parts and rudiments and stuff that you aren't that great at, that the song has, that forces you to get better at them. So I think covers do have a benefit all the way around. and I enjoy doing them. I do think that at times they are overplayed, and you do see a few too many of them. A lot of times on the social media platforms, they get repetitive. I mean, there's some songs that you'll punch in, and there's 3 drum covers. Others you'll punch in, and there's 103 drum covers, which that makes it a little bit challenging. Well, I don't really want to do that one because everybody and their mother's already done it. So let's just move on.
Learning drum covers is a great tool, in my opinion, especially for someone that maybe has never done the song before, and it forces you to learn. It also gives you an opportunity for any skill level to actually play with musicians, right? So to play with good musicians, they were good enough to make the album or whatever CD or whatever you're listening to, right?
Right.
It gives you an outlet to try to play with people, especially in this day and age of COVID where you can't really go out. It gives you an opportunity to sit back and play with other musicians, even though you're not actually doing it. It gives you the sense that you are. I like using Drumlish versions that I grab off of YouTube for the exact reason you just said, and kind of tied into what Julian said earlier. I'd rather create or try to create my own drum part. And the only downside I think to covers, if there is any, is that all you're doing is regurgitating somebody else's creativity. Someone else had to think of those parts, took the time to figure out what they were going to do. But for someone that maybe couldn't do some of the technical facilities that were needed to play that cover that they're working on, well, that's a practice opportunity to get better at something that maybe they couldn't have done before. And then that will go into their own little personal drum toolbox so that they can now have they've learned something in that they can apply in their own creative approach to an original song or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, like if I can interject real quick too. I found that like playing along to songs growing up, like just in my headphones, like to records or CDs or whatever, I found like that was like major like stuff that helped me progress in my drumming game at a very like early age, and like fast too. Like playing along to Metallica, playing along to like Rush, playing along to like hip hop too, like a bit of everything, right? And like Supertramp and all these like old bands, right? I found like that like actually like really helped me get a solid foundation of timekeeping. And I knew if I was locking with the record that I must be playing it right. You know what I mean? I guess if that like kind of makes sense to you guys.
Yeah. The thing I also like about covers too, along those lines, is when you're talking about creativity. So I mean, one that's been kicking my butt for I don't know the last 2 months was Roxanne. So a big thing with that song when we're talking about keeping time is the time's really weird. It's not like normal at all. And that's something I would have never thought to play on my own, is just a really odd time.
Yeah.
So that, along with other covers that I've practiced and learned with different counts and everything, are all things that I've put in my toolbox. And now when I am in a creative mode of a drumless track, these are all things that I like, oh, well, I did this in this song, and while I'm playing it just kind of comes out, and then you go back like, oh wow, that's cool. I didn't I see it helping you in a sense, as long as you can still be creative. Like Steve pointed out that he knew somebody that only did covers and couldn't actually play the drums by themselves, like it was only covers. And you don't want to get dependent on just knowing cover songs.
Yeah, if you can only go around and speak something that's already been written for you, that's kind of sad, right? You never really communicate well with amongst other people. So, for example, I walk around and I have to have a book in front of me. You say something, I got to read how I want to answer you. Then where do you ever learn to develop your own voice and your own identity? And that's the only downside. But really, there's so much of an uptick to it that I would think that it's a great tool for many reasons. But I would just warn not to get too complacent with just doing covers, and that's the only danger that I see if you're totally reliant on playing covers.
Yeah, you become
you never learn to speak.
you become like dependent on it, was what you're saying, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do that. Like I said, with with COVID, that's why we're focusing
Yeah.
on the covers, because
That's true.
nobody's gonna get out right now. Like, I mean, just nobody's playing.
That's true.
Your best bet is, I mean, to do a Zoom link up with people. Like, hey, Zoom me and we'll play all together. I mean, that's as close as you're gonna get, I think, for a while at this point. With the rate everything's going.
Yeah, for sure.
And to touch on what you were saying a few minutes ago about improvising. Only thing I would say is improvising over a cover is great once you learn the actual cover. Because if not, you're not covering anything. You're just
That's
playing.
true.
So then it kind of defeats everything I just said earlier about learning to go out of your comfort zone and learn another person's train of thought and how they approached it. Once you got that down, then I say, yeah, then go, and as you do it over and over, you start hearing your own ideas of what you would have played there.
Mhm.
And that's when you go and you put your own little fills and maybe change the feel a little bit. Then I think that's a great thing to do.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, I know me and Steve talked about this a couple days ago. So I've kind of, just like you were saying, Julian, it's nice to have the newer equipment and be able to get the songs in and hear what you're playing against. So the upside and downside to that is, so some of the new songs that I've loaded into my DAW and been playing
I just
along
say
with.
you can't not rub it in. Go ahead.
I didn't say anything. You hear that you weren't as good at a song, particularly, that you thought you were as good at, with your timing, your feels, just in general. You pretty much sucked at it because you can hear. So hearing what you're playing is a really big thing to learning covers, is hearing the
I can
music.
never go back.
And yes, Steve, thank you to Yamaha and that EAD10, which is amazing.
I don't see you, so you don't exist. Dude, if you knew how much trouble I sit back here and I try to mix and I curse you probably almost daily when I do sit down here to record, because I constantly get in a state of over tinkering and trying to get a better sound, trying to get it a little tighter, a little cleaner. And then you can take your 5 minutes and you upload something, and I want to punch you right between those glasses, dude. Post this perfectly mixed thing, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! I spent 4 hours on mine, and I won't even post it because it sucks.
Well, we're gonna try to get Yamaha to sponsor us or something. Maybe we can all get one.
You know what? There you go. Now you're talking, Ray. I started Instagram. I almost never did covers. And then I said I never did covers, and guess what I did? I was a hypocrite, and I started doing covers because no one was really paying attention to not doing covers.
Yeah.
I caught myself, and I went, you know what, though? Go back to being more true to being creative. And it's funny because I can be as creative as I want to a drumless tune that I pull off of YouTube, and it gets no traction. So it ties into people do covers because more people are going to want to listen to something they recognize than if you're jamming on a drumless song.
Depending on how good you jam on the drumless track. I mean, if you got a really nice groove going on, people are going to jam.
And apparently I don't have it going on because, my 3,500 supposed followers, and I get a whole 200 views, and I'm like, ooh, I must suck.
That's a good old algorithm.
Yeah, it's literally, it's all about like getting people to follow each other and like comment and all that stuff, all like working together. Because like if you notice, a lot of those, like even the pro musicians, like the big guys, like the big drummers and stuff, you'll notice they're all liking each other's videos and all their stuff. So if you think let's say a guy has 4 million followers and then another guy has 5 million followers or whatever, right away, if that guy likes that guy's and that guy likes that guy's, and away you go. You have all those eyeballs that could potentially see it, right? It's all about the spread.
The problem is that okay. I'm not even going to say anything, and not
rabbit hole.
In theory, what you're saying is absolutely correct. But
rabbit hole.
Yeah, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole. You're gonna see the Jekyll and Hyde, Steve. Who
I think we had enough on that one.